Greetings everyone. So today will be one of those videos from inside of my fish room. I don't know whether you like this format or not, but today we're going to look at one of the tanks in my fish room. There's actually quite a lot of things happening in here, mostly in terms of this proliferation of all sort of plant life down in the lower row of the fish room, and also upstairs lots of moss in here, lots of immersed growth happening in this tank. But today I wanted to talk about this tank over there, actually, which was everyone's favorite when I last made a video about fish room, and so I thought I'll make a more kind of a detailed video about this fish tank down here, and about all the plants. And you can see there is a lot happening in terms of immersed growth. Hydrocotyle Leocephala, or Brazilian Pennywort, is just going mad in here. It's all over the place. It actually goes in here and it's blossoming, and I've never had it grow so much previously, but now it's just an enormous amount of plants all over the place. So let's start with this system. I understand that it's a bit difficult to film it properly because it's in the corner. It's under this slope part of my fish room, and it's a staircase upstairs. It's right under the staircase. It's a shallow tank. I think it's about 30 centimeters tall, which is about 1 foot. And it's I think 2.5 foot, or maybe 2.5 foot or 3 foot long, actually. It's about 100 liters of water in this tank, but considering the amount of plants, I would say there's like half of that amount is occupied by plants. Initially that used to be unheated tank, but later on I've added some fish in here which require some heating, so I've added a small heater to the back, but still it stays at about 23 degrees Celsius or something like this. It has a relatively powerful full spectrum aquarium light. It's a no brand light, and it's a lamp that I've had for years, maybe like for 5 or 6 years, over various other fish tanks, and it's still doing great. And it's some sort of a budget brand. It's actually a no brand light, I would say. The other piece of equipment on this tank is this pump. It's just a regular All Pond Solutions flow pump with a sponge attached to it. It's all covered by a blackbird algae, because at some point I had an explosion of blackbird algae in this tank. In most other places that algae is gone, but it still lives on this pump, and I've never taken it out to clean it, so it's still there. I have directed the flow upwards. You can see it's actually creates that sort of a streaming river or something like that effect on top of the fish tank, and that's basically the only type of filtration on this tank. I'm usually washing the sponge, I would say, like once in 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm adding some fresh water, replacing whatever water evaporates, and I'm not doing any water changes on this tank, actually, because the amount of plants here is insane. So I'll start with this first half of the tank, which you are most likely to see once you enter my fish room. There's a lot of Coridoras duplicarios in here, and I'll talk about them a bit later. So what do we have in here? We have some remnants of dwarf such. I've planted it initially several months ago in here, and it was overtaken by blackbird algae, but now blackbird algae is receding, and dwarf such is starting to grow. Well, this is a regular sand, but underneath I have some root fertilizer, some root sticks for Coridoras plants, and in here I've got Coridoras argentinensis, this plant here. It was a bit dormant for quite a while, but now it is starting to grow. But in the back, in that corner, I have I think 1 or 2 plants of Coridoras polyfolius. This is actually Coridoras polyfolius, and it's doing great. Lots of immersed growth, and it has taken it a while to actually start growing, but now It's shooting, I think, one leaf every week, so that's good enough. In the back there is a gold pothos, and it grows with its roots underwater. You can't really see its roots because they're somewhere behind that wall of moss in here. And it's not a fast growing pothos actually, and in my previous setups golden pothos did not grow particularly fast either. So there's the other plant that's doing quite well in here is Christmas moss. This whole wall of Christmas moss is actually growing on a wall made up of empty coconut shells, some Cariniana pots, and lava rock. So inside there is sort of a hollow space that fish can use to hide, and where a lot of Coridoras fry are actually living. They hide within that moss, and through the moss they can penetrate all the structures underneath that moss, and think that's quite great for hiding purposes. And yes, the other plant, well, this is a pothos that grows from another nearby tank. So let's move on to talk about the elephant in the room, Hydrocotyle here. It started out as I think a couple of small plants, but it has expanded over time, exploded, I would say. It has broken the water surface, and which obviously has given it a lot of advantage over other plants. And there used to be other plants in here. There used to be a lot of water lettuce. You can see only a few remaining pieces in here. There used to be quite a lot of hornwort, which is also a tough plant, a survivor plant that can beat up lots of other plants on nutrients, but it didn't stand any chance with Hydrocotyle, which actually grows immersed, so it gets lots of CO2 from the air, and also gets lots of nutrients from water. So it just literally overpowered every other plant in this system, and it's actually doing great. You can see that there are some small white flowers on it, like here. So it's blossoming, and it just spread out on all sides of the tank. You can see actually it goes behind the tank in here. There's some styrofoam boxes behind, and it just like grows under and beneath those boxes. And it yeah, actually it's a dominant plant in here. I'm trimming it as soon as it reaches this part of the tank to ensure that it doesn't cover all this empty space in here, which I used to feed fish and I used to access the tank. So I'm trying to contain it to that other part. But it actually kind of spreads outside of that tank and grows into this neighboring tank. There's lots of shoots, also a lot of branches of Brazilian Pennywort that kind of get by themselves, all by themselves, into this system here. There is of course some Brazilian Pennywort that grows underwater in this system as well, but it doesn't have a chance to emerge. So most of the emergent plant growth actually spreads out from this tank here, and it's doing quite great in here as well. You can see there are some flowers, white flowers in here. So going back to this system, it's actually difficult to film inhabitants of this tank because they have plenty of places to hide, and the other half of this tank, this half, the larger half actually, is almost completely dark. You can see because of the amount of plants in here, it's impossible to see anything happening there. I'm trying to film all the Coridoras on the bottom. Well, this tank has a few small tetras. It has some black neon tetras, I think just two. Right now you're seeing, you're watching Coridoras duplicarias spawning most likely. Yeah, there's a couple of black neon tetras, there are some Pristella tetras, and there are a few Apheohyrax rasbani. all hiding in the back and almost impossible to see them, but very few of them. So the two dominant species here are Coridoras duplicareus and Coridoras aenius Trinidad, which is a wild caught bronze cory. But Coridoras duplicareus are certainly the dominant species in here. I started with a breeding group, my old breeding group, consisting of two males and a female, and they've just bred in here. They keep on breeding, and there are various generations of their fry in here. You can actually see them having this spawning frenzy in the back. They seem to enjoy these slightly cooler temperatures, lots of flow in here, lots of plants, and I've just seen, I think recently, quite a few tiny fry hiding in the moss and trying to feed on pieces of dry food from the moss. It's really hard to capture them on video because they're hiding all the time, but there's certainly lots of Coridoras duplicareus in here. I can't say exactly how many, but looks like more than 30 or 40, and I'd love to remove some of them, but there's no chance for me to catch anything in this tank, because the moment I get my net in there, they're all hiding somewhere, and there's no chance for me to reduce their numbers. So yes, this tank looks absolutely amazing, and particularly because of all this Hydrocotyleocephala growth, and also because of the Coridoras growing nicely in here. And yes, I didn't have any intentions to create some sort of escape in here, some sort of a natural escape in here, because I was just randomly adding plants, and I was expecting that this would be sort of a Coridoras breeding colony setup, which it is in a way, but it's also a beautiful escape, quite unexpectedly, and very naturally looking escape. And that's one of the reasons why I love shallow tanks, because they provide you with this opportunity to create so much emergent growth, and to add riparian plants, and to have aquatic plants to emerge from the water surface and to spread outside of the tank, and that's a great advantage of shallow tanks. But I guess it also comes down to how narrow this space is and how warm it gets once I close this door. So there's a lot of really warm air inside of that space, which probably allows Hydrocotyleocephala to grow quite happily in this confined space. The same thing I can say about Hydrocotyleocephala here, as well as a lot of Amazon frogbit emerging from the water surface in this tank. And just a couple of words about this tank. I'll probably make a separate video about it, although it's very difficult to film it because of all the reflection in here. There is two colonies of pencil fish living in here, Nanostomus equus and Nanostomus beckfordi, wild caught red form. And well, the Nanostomus equus, they're not breeding as far as I can say so far, because they're still juveniles. But Nanostomus beckfordi red form, they actually breed quite intensively in here, so there are lots of pencil fish fry living among the roots of these plants, and there's a lot of infusoria in here, a lot of bacteria in here that they feed on. I could see them with the naked eye, so there is a lot of bacterial growth happening in all this emerged plant mass, which is a great thing. So, but yeah, unfortunately almost impossible to film anything here without disturbing all this plant mass. And the last look at this tank here with lots of emergent plants as well, such as pothos, for example, which spreads all the way in here. This is a temporary holding tank for my Coridoras. If you've seen my previous videos, these are Coridoras concolora, and they've actually all healthy now, feeding well and enjoying their life here. And this, just as a conclusion, I'll show you this tiny little baby. This is a Hypancystrus L333 King Tiger pleco, sorry, which was born apparently relatively recently. I've counted like 6 or 7 of this fry. I do not remove the fry of my Hypancystrus. I previously did remove them in a separate container hanging in here, but I've lost literally every single fry that I would remove, and whenever I stopped removing the fry and allowing parents, fathers to actually take care of that fry, so to say, manually, they started surviving, and they kind of live all over this tank, and I'm throwing some crushed flake and pellet foods which they feed on, and hopefully they will grow into healthy adults. That's one of them. And he or she particularly likes to stay in this spot, I guess, because of the flow from the pipe, from the pump, sorry. And so that's sort of an update which has mostly focused on this tank here. I guess because this is my favorite tank in the fish room, and because there is a lot happening in this fish tank, but overall I just wanted to show you what's happening in the fish room. So please leave your comments in the comment section. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. And I will see you soon.